Magic trick. I guess you're in the neighborhood. Ready? Welcome. I'm Port of Seattle Commissioner Fred Felleman and Managing Member of the Northwest Seaport Alliance. I'm delighted to be joined here today with Barry Barr from the CAVU and, of course, our great Senator Maria Cantwell. We couldn't have a better champion for free and fair trade in the country, no less to protect our interests here in the Gateway. We've been really aware that uncertainty has been causing great damage to our trade in this great, highly trade-dependent state that in which we live. Just last week, we saw a 30% decline in container volumes moving through our gateway, and this week we have 25% reduction year over year. So clearly, our trading partners are looking for stability, and as we've seen just from the different court rulings of yesterday and today, this is just another oscillation in the yo-yo of trade that this administration has inflicted upon us. This is no way to conduct business. Our trading partners will find other places to go if they can't count on us. And this affects not just the folks at the terminals, but the entire supply chain, as well as, and very importantly, our exporters, from the grain to the perishable fruits that we rely on here. I just want to say thank you so much for your attention to this, and we are really delighted that we could not have somebody more concerned about our well-being. But first, I'd like to turn it to Mr. Barr, who is one of the casualties of such erratic trade policies. Here we go.
All right, thanks, Fred. Thanks, Senator Cantwell, for having me down here. Yeah, first want to thank Senator Cantwell for the tirelessly fighting for Washington businesses and businesses across the United States. The recent court verdict to possibly bring back tariffs back to normal is paramount for medium to small-sized businesses across the United States. This is the best news I've heard in 5 months. In business, we need predictability. And it's just been chaos and uncertainty, and we're not sure what to do or even where to find the information to lead. And especially in sourcing and manufacturing, the timelines are so long and so far out there. Several years we're doing it, and we just don't know where to go. And obviously this court verdict is a great sign for the American consumers. Hopefully prices won't increase if we can get back to normal tariffs, because there is some rhetoric. I want to point out that we do pay tariffs. Everything that comes in, if you're making products offshore, we pay tariffs. And then these new tariffs from when it's 145 to 30, they just stack on top of each other. And that's paid, we pay it right to the American government. And this is a great first sign that we can get back to normal business, I think. And that's all we need, is predictability and stability. And Senator Cantwell has been fighting tirelessly for everyone, and no further ado, I'd like to introduce Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Commissioner Felleman, for coming down and talking about how the Port of Seattle is being affected by the trade disputes that we're seeing from this administration. First of all, Washington is one of the most trade-dependent states in our country. And so any policy that basically curtails the economic opportunities affects all of us in our community. 2 courts have ruled against President Trump's tariffs. They basically have said he's exceeded his authority. For almost 24 hours, consumers, just like Barry, heard that good news and thought maybe we were having a reprieve against these terrible actions that are costing consumers more. The U.S. Constitution gave Congress the power to set tariffs and regulate foreign commerce. The Court of International Trade gave the president 10 days to make changes to implement an order to end these tariffs. But instead, the Trump administration is trying to appeal. And the president continues to push for additional tariffs on semiconductors, on pharmaceuticals, and other sectors. I believe we should be doing trade agreements instead. We should be building alliances and addressing the shortcomings of some of the challenges we face, but not putting tariffs on that are hard to get off and oftentimes can lead to years and years of trade wars. The president is on the wrong path for our economy. By bypassing Congress and skirting these rules, we have seen the impacts on tariffs on small businesses, just like Barry mentioned. This is uncertainty for them and their business. It's higher cost for consumers, and for a trade-dependent economy like ours, it means that we will have less dollars flowing through our ports. Businesses cannot place orders because they don't know what the costs were going to be. There is an extra burden on the small businesses who can't afford to pay the tariffs on goods that they haven't sold yet. And manufacturers can't order parts because prices are fluctuating wildly in the supply chain. That means exporters do not know how foreign trading partners will even retaliate against them for shelf space. So American businesses need a rules-based trade system. That means American families would have the certainty, not chaos, and not higher prices. We know this, that when you start trade wars, usually that means you end up closing markets. We want to see the opening of markets. We need more opportunities for U.S. exporters. And the trade alliance that was done here between the Port of Seattle and Tacoma leveraged that ability for us to reach more markets. 95% of the world consumers live outside the United States, and if we want to be competitive with other countries, we need to be fighting to open markets, not a fight on retaliatory tariffs that are causing us great hardship and are costing us that important shelf space. I hope Congress and the courts keep stepping up the process of saying no to this trade chaos. I know that the president's actions, the court has basically said, were misconstrued in his authority and exceeded his authority. This is very important because the U.S. Court of International Trade and the Court of District also basically said that that exceeding of the authority was not given to him by Congress. I hope my colleagues will continue to pay attention, and I hope they will also act on legislation by myself and Senator Grassley to make sure this issue is clear once and for all. Happy to answer any questions.
Jobs at the port, well, this has been going on. Do you have any numbers at all of how this is affecting the port?
Well, there's a pretty linear relationship between the lack of container movements and the jobs associated with it, because the truck drivers only get paid per container they move. So we have 4,000 drivers between the Seattle and Tacoma ports. So when we have blank sailings, and we had 4 of them just last week, meaning they just didn't arrive, that's no jobs. And so the same thing with longshore. So we are looking at pretty linear relationship that right now with the 25% year-over-year decline, it looks pretty bad.
How many people work a ship?
Well, the number of shifts per, it depends on how many gangs they have to move, how many containers are moving at one time.
Cantwell, if the courts uphold the decision today, what's the next move for you all in Congress to try and...
Well, if they uphold the court process and basically say that he did act arbitrarily, then the administration will be forced to change that policy. And we think this is so important, regardless of who's president. And now that we see how much damage can be done by a president coming in and acting arbitrarily, I think Congress still needs to step in. But the fact that the courts basically, 2 courts have said he acted arbitrarily and he exceeded his capacity, it shows you the danger of not clarifying this, because we don't want to see this kind of havoc again, particularly on small businesses.
Are you disappointed with that?
Well, the stay means that they will have until June 9th to review the details. But we know this, that it is wreaking havoc on the U.S. economy. And because we represent such a trade-dependent part of the United States and we want more trade, we're really worried about the alliance building that'll happen without us participating. We're worried that other partners will go do deals and leave our products off the shelf. Or even our competitiveness with Prince Rupert could be affected. If all of a sudden Canada and other places are doing more deals together, if it accelerates, we don't want to see our ports affected as they are now. And I don't know, Fred, if you have a point about that.
her point about Prince Rupert is particularly relevant. Many people think that we're competing with the LA Long Beach megaports, but in fact, Canada is our largest competitor. And Canada, being a sparsely populated country, they're primarily serving our Midwest. So they bring cargo in without these tariffs and then come all the way across the border and then can serve, Chicago and the whole distribution center of the Midwest. So this could completely divert traffic. We are working very hard to try to close this loophole. But, once you're in the Northwest, whether you go a couple degrees north or south, you're still going to the same market.
Senator, is there some sort of coalition with states who banding together?
Well, we're definitely trying to say that the trade economy of the future is what is the big economic opportunity for the United States. We love the fact that we're so innovative, and we love the fact that we are leading the way on all sorts of new sectors that are important to the economy. But when you think about it, you still have to import those component parts, or you still have to make semiconductors effective. We just had a hearing recently where we showed that the price of semiconductor inputs have gone up 6% in cost. So that makes us less competitive to other places. So we want to see the trade regime. We want a rules-based system that everybody understands, and we want to open up more opportunities. And so we think that talking to places around the United States, states that have coastal economies generate about 80% of the U.S. economic output. So we're talking about some very important economies. And we do think that those places should be speaking up more about the trade situation and the fact that it really could hurt their states' economies.
And if I could just add, though, there is the American Association of Port Authorities, that is the national association that is carrying this torch, and that there are ports all around the country. It's a bipartisan issue. While the coastal states tend to be bluer, we're moving goods throughout the country. So this is something that we have a broad coalition of support and needs to be getting through to this administration, that our country prospers when we can compete in a global marketplace.
Yeah, it's so important. We had the soybean industry testify before the Senate Finance Committee, and they were talking about why this is so important to them. That last time the tariffs went into effect in the first Trump administration, that they lost market share in China. It plummeted, but they never recovered to their original, I think it was like 56% or something of the market. So they never recovered. And so their point is, don't do these kind of trade wars where at the end you lose out because in the middle of the trade war, other people got access to the market. And so I think that the farm community is a particular coalition of people who care about this in the Midwest, and that's why the bipartisan effort by myself and Senator Grassley has been effective. And I've heard some things that people have said while we're on recess, but we'll have to see now how our colleagues interpret these decisions.
I just one point is that these trade relationships are sticky, and that when you move to another market, once you set up these supply chains, they don't all come back. And so this is a very dangerous period of time because those folks are going to move goods, right? And they're happy. They're looking at Africa. They're looking at other places where they can both import and export. So if we're not seen as a reliable partner, doesn't mean that trade doesn't continue. It just doesn't go through our gateway or our country. So severe challenges, and right now it's uncertainty more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I do think that trade is, with 95% of consumers outside the United States, is this big economic opportunity. And as we look to counter China on certain issues, one thing is really important is to have great trade relationships, particularly right now, I think, with South America. So we should be doing that, not curtailing our trade activities, increasing our trade agreements and trade alliances. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the short notice.
Senator.